You're watching the Segpay News Network. Today we're talking cybersecurity with Segpay's Thomas Murphy. Hello again, it's Mark Pettit in the Segpay studio here in the United States. Okay, merchants, listen up. Today we're talking cybersecurity and how to keep your online business safe. Our guest today is an expert in that subject. His name is Thomas Murphy. He is IT manager at Segpay. Thomas, thank you so much for taking time to be with us today.
Thank you, Mark. Glad to be here.
I don't think people have any idea from a technology standpoint what goes on behind the scenes, Thomas, to keep things up and running. Talk to us about what your team does on a daily basis to keep the payment platform at Segpay running safely and securely.
Our team protects and supports the technology behind the platform. That includes monitoring systems, managing security controls, maintaining infrastructure, responding to incidents, making sure the platform remains available, reliable, and secure.
I'm sure there have been some really bad days, Thomas, and some stuff that you've dealt with that you might not have talked about before. Give us an example of one of those really crazy days.
A good story is card runners, and typically they all have a common denominator, so to speak. And Cloudflare is pretty good at picking them up. But with one of the more advanced attacks, they were switching IPs. It was basically a botnet, and they were switching IDs, PCI IDs, device IDs. There was really no common denominator. So what we had to do was manually look for a common denominator, such as like a zip code or an email address, because they were switching the cards, but they made one mistake and didn't change something up. So we would lock in on that, but this was a manual process. So this would work for a day or so, and then we would have to switch it up again. And that's where we came into our relationship with Datadome. And Datadome actually takes many different signatures from the transaction or the user interaction, and it makes a decision on the fly. And once we enable that, we still have to keep an eye out. We still have to respond sometimes, but it's a lot easier with Datadome and AI behind the scenes taking care of us.
So this is literally hand-to-hand combat, it seems like, on a daily basis, these possible attacks happening. So cybersecurity is so important for online merchants. I'm curious, Thomas, how things have changed over the years. How have you seen things evolve?
That's a really good question. Well, cyber attacks have become faster, more automated, and more convincing. They're using better phishing, stolen credentials, automation, and AI. So businesses have had to detect and respond to these threats much more quickly.
And Segpay operates in the high-risk space, as you know, which tends to attract more fraudsters. What does that mean from your perspective, Thomas, how you have to be even more prepared?
Well, we have to take a layered approach. We combine technology, monitoring, and access tools, fraud detection, employee awareness. Employee awareness is a big one, and clear response procedures rather than relying on a security tool. And I can give you an example of something that happened just this week. Our personal cell phone numbers are on social media sites. What the fraudsters are doing now is they're sending personal message to personal cell phones, and they'll say something like, "We have an urgent change to your compensation package, click here to review and approve." And of course, that's going to obviously try and phish some type of information to scam the end user. So I definitely a layered approach. And I think that employee education and end user education in general is extremely important.
Payment processing companies have to deal with a lot of personal information. Thomas, does that make it even more difficult from your end to protect that data?
Yes, it's crucial. As a payment provider, we have to safeguard not only the credit card information, the payment data, but we also have to protect information such as email addresses and things of that nature. So not only are we following PCI, we're also following regulations such as GDPR. And we always strive to make our security better. And then when these new regulations come along, or I shouldn't call GDPR new now, but we strive to exceed those requirements.
AI is a white hot topic, as you know, in all businesses today, and it is helping businesses, but I would think that fraudsters are using it as well. How do you stay ahead of that kind of stuff?
That's a good question. We continually review new threats, we update our security controls, test our defenses, and we use AI ourselves to test those defenses. So we have our own penetration testing. We also utilize AI within our technology stack to detect security incidents, such things as a card running attack or a botnet attack.
Segpay processes transactions 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. So it's an incredible task to protect the infrastructure. What does that mean for merchants? What kind of assurance does it give them, Thomas?
Well, it requires continuous monitoring, redundancy, backups, regular patching, testing, well-practiced incident response procedures. The goal is to identify problems and keep transactions moving when an individual system has an issue, and backups where that fails.
We're in an instant gratification world. People want everything right now. And I know merchants want a fast transaction processing. How do you balance speed with security?
Well, of course, we don't want to inhibit the transaction too much while we maintain security. So that's where our layered approach comes in. And we try to make a decision very quickly on whether or not there is something that we need to take a deeper look at. At the front lines, we decide with our software whether the transaction is going to pass or not, and then something may get flagged. Once that transaction goes through, that we'll have another set of eyes look at.
Thomas, walk us through what happens when the customer hits pay now. Take us behind the scenes and walk us through how that transaction is processed and how your team makes sure it's safe and secure.
The transaction is securely transmitted, validated, and checked for signs of fraud in our WAF or our firewall, our security controls. We check for probably about 20 or 30 different signatures, and then we make a decision on whether or not to let that transaction go past. Now, based on reputation or AI, we may block it altogether and not let it go through. We may throw up some type of a challenge, like a slider or a CAPTCHA, and we determine if the transaction is human or not, and then we let it go forward at that point. And then, like I said previously, there can be further signs of abuse or fraud picked up and red flagged, and a member of our fraud team will review that transaction at a later time.
So 30 things happening all at once, at least 30 things happening all at once, right?
Right. It's a complicated procedure to keep everything up 24/7, 365. With the bad guys trying to get in every day is a challenge.
Herculean task. Compliance, as you know, Thomas, is very important to merchants. How does compliance and cybersecurity work together?
Well, they're closely connected. Compliance provides an important baseline for protecting payment data, while cybersecurity focuses on the broader and constantly changing threat. PCI DSS is a set of standards that Segpay follows to ensure the cardholder's data is protected. And here at Segpay, we try to take it a step beyond that, not just check a box. We want to go above and beyond to make sure that our cardholder data is safe.
We've talked a lot about what Segpay does to protect data. Let's talk about merchants. What 2 or 3 things can they do, Thomas, to protect their business?
Merchants can protect their business, I think, with a layered approach. They can use multi-factor authentication, keep their systems up to date. They can use zero trust software such as ThreatLocker. I like to call it trust but verify. Zero trust sounds kind of negative, but I think it's a necessary evil. Basically, you're just allowing only certain programs to run on your network. So it's not inhibiting business, so to speak. I think zero trust software is extremely important these days, along with what I spoke about earlier, which is employee education. I think that's paramount.
So, as you said, a layered approach that includes technology and common sense, talking to your employees, talking to staff about these threats that are real and happening all the time. Well, Thomas, thank you so much for taking us behind the scenes and talking to us about how you and your team help fight cybersecurity and fraud behind the scenes at Segpay. It's great having you with us.
Thank you, Mark.
If you haven't already, please like and subscribe to our channel because we're going to have more great content just like this coming to you in the coming days and weeks right here on the Segpay News Network.